Dave DeWalt here, the founder and CEO of NightDragon. Want to welcome everybody to our NightVision special event today. Welcome to the world of cyber again. As you know, NightDragon, we're an investor and advisor in the world of security tech. So we focus in on all the threats and risks that are happening in the world across all five major domains: satellites and space, air and oceans and land, but especially cyber. For those who don't know me, I have a long background running companies, including FireEye and Mandiant, McAfee, and other companies in the cybersecurity world. Today, I have such a great guest, and I just want to say, first of all, thank you, Dave Luber, for coming on today. And I can see you're coming live from Fort Meade with the background, so thank you. Sorry I didn't wear a tie today. I mentioned I tried to wear a little West Point and get in the mood of everything, but I know is that standard uniform for you these days?
Well, for me, a tie is often standard uniform, but not for everyone at NSA, thankfully.
Yeah. Well, I just want to give everybody just a little of your background. You're one of the people that I look up to. And I think, I've been working with public-private partnerships for 20 plus years, and just want to, first of all, say thank you for your service and incredible career and commitment to our country and all the hard work that you do, and what a difficult job. So I think this marks roughly 37 years of experience and service. So I start off with that. Sorry to date you a little bit, but my numbers are very similar to your numbers when it comes to years of experience. So that's kind of fun. But just so everybody knows, you became NSA's Director of Cybersecurity on April 1st, and succeeding Rob Joyce, who's a big friend of all of us as well. And we just love Rob. Prior to that, you were the Deputy Director of Cybersecurity at the NSA, and then also the executive director of the U.S. Cyber Command, the highest ranking civilian and third in command of the U.S. Cyber Command. Before that, the director of NSA in Colorado, which I think is very cool, one of my favorite states as well, and just a long career at the NSA. And I wanted to start out by just saying, how did you grew up in the Baltimore area, from what I understand, and I'm not sure how far away from Fort Meade you grew up, and like how it all got entered into the NSA, but tell everybody your story for a minute, if you would.
Dave, first off, it's great to be here and really look forward to the discussion today. Yeah, I started at NSA when I was 18 years old. And it was really part of a recruitment effort NSA had at the time. I had the privilege to be able to take an NSA career test at my high school when I was a junior, and really great opportunity to take a 3-hour test to see, if I was going to really fit in at the NSA. And it turns out they called on me later to join the agency, and really appreciated the opportunity to serve our nation. The NSA has an amazing set of career opportunities for employees, and they supported opportunities for me to go to college at night. And that allowed me to earn my advanced degrees in computer science and network security while working full time and going to school at night. So really great opportunity to join in back in the late 80s and join the National Security Agency.
Well, you were one of the most technical people that I've met as well, especially in these roles, and others are there too. But your proficiency and technical backgrounds are pretty amazing. And it's kind of fun to see your whole career at NSA and have some fun. So what was that career test like? Like what did you have to pass for the career to get into the NSA as a junior? In junior high school, I'm not even sure I knew which end was up. So you were way ahead of me at that time.
Well, I can't recall every part of the test, but I'll share with you there was some math, there was some writing, there was a variety of puzzles and other creative thinking exercises that required you to be able to stay on top, not only from a timing and tempo perspective, but also from an accuracy perspective. So, but 3 hours of fun, that's what I considered when I took the test.
I love that you say fun. Hey, let's segue for a minute in education, because just hearing your story of being a junior in high school and then being a part of the NSA and all your career through that, I know you're a big proponent of education and cyber education. I know the NSA is a big proponent of cyber education. Maybe spend a minute talking about the why of that and for our nation and what programs maybe you've been involved with. Just give a little shape to that from your perspective.
Yeah, first off, Dave, NSA is a learning organization, and it doesn't start when you first join NSA. It actually starts left of a career. So a couple programs that I'll highlight. First, our K through 12 program. It's called Gen Cyber, and folks can look at more details at gen-cyber.com. And this is where we really engage high school students across the nation and get them interested in STEM topics, whether it's math or programming in Python, or even actually bringing some language skills in with some of the STEM skills. So you might be speaking Mandarin Chinese while you're learning Python at the same time. This is a great opportunity to get those younger students interested in cybersecurity. As we move into the collegiate level, we have over 470 partnerships with universities across the country as part of our National Centers of Academic Excellence. This is something we've been doing for nearly 30 years now. And we've set the stage with both curriculum and guidance for those universities for cybersecurity, computer network operations, and cybersecurity research. So some universities have certification in all three of those programs. Others may just be certified in the cybersecurity portion of the program. But in the end, what you end up with are students coming out of those programs ready to serve our nation, whether they're going to serve our nation in the private sector, whether they're going to come in and work in government or other areas. They've now had a great solid foundation in those important cyber topics. And we're always working with those universities. I've been working with a particular university for the last 15 years. I know the professor, I know all the students that are engaged in our program. And those students, among many others, have an opportunity to come work for us in the summertime as well, in summer internships. So when they apply in October, we'll work on getting their clearance for them. And if they get through their clearance process, they'll join us the following summer for 12 weeks. They'll work in a classified environment doing NSA mission. 85% of those students who come in and are working with us as a summer intern join us full time when they graduate. So it's a really great return. And then lastly, I'll share with you that we have a scholarship program that we work with the National Science Foundation on, as well as the Office of Personnel Management, called CyberCorps. This really helps students who are looking to get into the cybersecurity community, but maybe need a little more assistance from the standpoint of having support for some of their college classes. So scholarship for service. Each of those students owe the U.S. government 2 years of service after they graduate. They may go into CISA, which we'd love to see. They may go into FBI. They may go into CIA. They may join us here at NSA. But really, that opportunity to prepare those students to ensure that we're ready across government with the right skills for the next generation of our workforce.
Music to my ears, Dave, because, I wish I had a redo when I was 18 to kind of see that as well. Having grown up with blue collar parents, I just didn't see the opportunity. And here you are creating all these opportunities to serve mission, get educated, do really important work in the world, and really applaud you that. I just tell you, NightDragon, we believe in this too. We've been very, very active as a platform around cyber education, innovation, and job creation, putting in a lot of dollars, investment dollars into this area, partnering with the White House and the National Cyber Director, Harry Coker, on the work he's done, but also the great work Jen Easterly and yourself are doing. I love it. Director Ponch over at the National Science Foundation, the work he's doing, and we need it. In one man's view, there's 3+ million jobs open in the cyber community around the world and hundreds of thousands in the United States. So this is an important area of talent growth over the long haul and importance, because if you look at some of our adversaries, particularly China, they've got really well established education and institutional programs that really, in some cases, are ahead of the United States in some of these areas. So music to my ears, Dave, on what you're doing there and the importance of all that. Yeah. Talk a little bit, if you would, about public-private partnership and the importance of that from your perspective. I know The NSA is doing the collaboration centers and trying to really partner better together. And I've been a part of this world for a long time as a CEO of companies in cyber. Maybe use your words for a little bit and talk about private partnerships from the director of cybersecurity in the NSA's world.
Absolutely. First off, I'll start off with the insights that we have from intelligence. So when you think about what NSA brings to the table from a cybersecurity perspective, we have a signals intelligence mission. We have an expert workforce that understands what adversaries are up to, what they're doing, and also have a very in-depth set of knowledge when it comes to a variety of different cyber topics from a subject matter expert perspective. And when you couple that with industry partnerships, you begin to have an opportunity to share insights while protecting those sensitive sources and methods, and begin to have partnerships that can expose from a broader perspective what's really going on in cyberspace. So in essence, separate what we know from how we know it and share what we know. And when we share what we know at the analyst level, NSA analysts working with industry analysts, we now have a much better picture of what's happening. And this is a bi-directional opportunity. Industry has a tremendous view of what's going on from a cyberspace perspective, but they may lack a little bit of the context of how important that particular actor is or that particular set of tradecraft. We can help with the context piece. We can help with sharing those insights that brings light and focus towards particular activities that are really important to our nation. A good example of that is Volt Typhoon. So when you look at the publication that was put out in May of 2023 that focused on how to find Volt Typhoon in critical infrastructure and other critical systems in our nation, take a look at the acknowledgement section of that particular document that's available on nsa.gov. It's living off the land, but there's about a dozen companies that contributed to that particular publication. So that's where the power of public-private partnerships really come into play, because often it's going to require many of us to get together as partners in order to really identify the most sophisticated tradecraft that's out there by the adversaries that we care most about.
Yeah, I can't agree more with you, David. And as somebody who's worked with the NSA for 2 decades in that capacity, I found it an incredible partnership for, everyone. Mandiant, FireEye days, McAfee days. It was incredible. Let's talk a little bit. You mentioned Volt Typhoon for a minute, but I want to kind of blow it up a little bit, maybe big picture for a second. You've been in this business for a long time, from the government perspective. I've been in it for a pretty long time from the private sector. I've called it the perfect storm for 20 years now. And I use this perfect cyber storm as a bit of an analogy, but it's an important one because I've seen this like growing set of technology, which is wonderful, but capitalism, technology creates this incredible atmosphere for us, but it also creates a wake of vulnerabilities and an increasing attack surface. And those vulnerabilities then give rise to attackers. And the number of attackers grew during my days at McAfee from tens of attackers to hundreds, if not thousands of attackers now. And the sophistication has grown from like hacktivism to crime to espionage to, war and terror. And, now at levels that we've really never seen before. And now put the geopolitical tensions around the world and the regional wars. I kept calling it a perfect cyberstorm because in a way it became bigger and bigger and bigger. Maybe from your perspective, Dave, just talk a little bit about what you see in the threat landscape globally for a minute, and then maybe we could talk about a couple of regional areas too.
Sure. And Dave, I think you rightfully pointed out the scope and scale factor that we're all focusing on right now. I'll speak to the PRC first, and then I'll talk a little bit about Russia. But when you look at the number of cybersecurity advisories we've published over the past 3 years, there's about 7 or 8 that just focus on PRC tradecraft. Everything from the idea that it's the top vulnerabilities that the PRC likes to exploit that are mostly unpatched systems, unpatched vulnerabilities, to the phases of exploitation where they need to use telecoms in order to make their way into target space and identify the key areas that they'd like to exploit. And then the exploitation of edge devices. A number of different edge devices become, a favorite, especially for the PRC, especially when they're unpatched, as then they can learn more about the network, conduct credential harvesting, and then dig deeper into the victims that they're interested in gaining access to. And then lastly, as they dig deeper into the networks, sometimes if it's espionage related, you may have an opportunity to see some bespoke tools. But when you look at techniques like living off the land, well, now you're really seeing an actor that's just using the standard operating system commands to make their way laterally into a network, find their position that's important for them for the purposes of conducting a computer network attack at the time they're choosing at some future time and date. So I think that when you think about the entirety of the tradecraft, they have to make their path to target. They have to find ways to conduct exploitation. And if we're not patching those systems, or if we're thinking about protecting our networks just with that one edge device, that's not going to be sufficient any longer in order to protect against the advancements that are occurring from the PRC. If I was to speak about Russia for a moment, I'd talk a little bit about Russia-Ukraine and how in the beginning of the conflict, we saw the Russians conduct more of an attack posture against Ukrainian networks, focusing on a variety of different wiper malware, and also the KA-SAT attack against the user modems in the space segment of that particular network. And while that had some impacts on Ukrainian systems and networks, I think the Ukrainians demonstrated some pretty impressive resiliency, as well as some Western companies coming in and providing technology to support the Ukrainians, which was a real strategic surprise for the Russians. I don't think they expected Western companies to come in with sophisticated technologies to support the Ukrainians. So now if I was to look at the pivot that the Russians have made in Ukraine, I think they're seeing more of an advantage in espionage over attack. So the opportunity for them to glean from exploitation insights from Ukrainian systems that would support their objectives on the Russian objectives on the battlefield, and to kind of counter Ukrainian objectives as well. I think that's where I see now the Russians focusing more of their efforts over attack operations. So a bit of a shift in their activities.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot, and I appreciate you saying that, David. Maybe I can go back to China for a minute, because we've seen so much activity from them. I go back quite a few years as well. When I was CEO of McAfee, we had these three pretty egregious attacks. This is coming from a private sector point of view, but first was one called Aurora, which when I was CEO of McAfee, we sort of had this epiphany of this set of units in the 3PLA that were essentially doing APT campaigns, particularly at high-tech sectors. One was pretty famous, Google, and a lot of other companies affected on that. We did a lot of incident response, but from a private sector, we were like, wow, the dwell times were super long. The access to really critical research and vulnerabilities in these high-tech platforms was really extensive. And then we saw another one. It was called NightDragon, which eventually I named my company after, but another Chinese APT campaign, this one at the oil and gas, Shady Rat, which was, again, remote access tools that were pretty widely deployed. Later in life, Dave, I said, which one of these three would I name my company? Shady Rat didn't seem like so cool, so I went with NightDragon. It sounded a lot better. But we watched over the years a lot of very aggressive espionage. I had 5,572 confirmed IP thefts that I responded to as CEO of FireEye mandate. 5,572 confirmed IP thefts. And We then watched a period of change, and now it seems like China's become much more emboldened again with Volt Typhoon and Salt Typhoon and things that were happening. I mean, is that a change in strategy for them in your perspective as well? Or what could you comment on the ebbs and flows of China's strategy and where we're at today?
Well, I think you used an important term, campaign. I do believe the PRC has a campaign, and focusing on the U.S. is part of one of their campaign objectives. If you think about Volt Typhoon just as an example, this opportunity to sow societal panic within the U.S. at the time of their choosing, likely in a time when Taiwan may be of a high concern and high ops tempo at that particular moment, that would cause the U.S. to look inward versus thinking about how we support an ally and partner on the other side of the globe. So I really do believe that there's more of a campaign approach that's occurring by the PRC, and something that requires us to really work together as partners. So we talked about the public-private partnerships, but really when I think about partnerships, I'd break it down into our Five Eyes partners across the intelligence community as a key partner, our partnerships with industry, our partnerships with academia, and then partnerships across US government and select foreign partners. That's what it's really going to take for us to keep a close eye on the advancements of the PRC as they develop their campaign, as they try and advance their campaign. And we have to do everything we possibly can to make sure that that advancement isn't fast, and that that advancement is countered through insights that we can share with each other.
Yeah, can't agree more. I always said it takes a village kind of thing. It's an old adage, but it really is true. Both public-private companies, like you suggested in the Ukraine-Russia example. One of my proudest moments at NightDragon was we had 5 of our portfolio companies very active in Ukrainian support during those first days and in later months, now year. But it's a pride that we were able to come together with government, with country to really create support of that, and that's important. But then the Five Eyes in general and all the partnerships working together is the only way we're going to eradicate that. Talk a little bit, if you would, at whatever level you can, turning back to Russia for a minute. A lot of activity occurring. You mentioned kind of an espionage kind of approach to Ukraine, more destructive or denial of service kinds of plays that they've been doing with cyber. But what are you seeing from them? I mean, coming out of the World Economic Forum, we saw misinformation, disinformation as kind of Davos's kind of number one worry around the world. We have 60 countries, democracies up in the air in this next 12-month period. We've got a lot of activity Russia's been doing. I mean, are you seeing that as a playbook for them around the world as well as an influence op? And is that continuing with a steady pace? What's your view?
Well, Dave, I won't be able to go into any specifics on that particular topic, but thematically, the same idea. If we see insights from intelligence that would demonstrate misinformation or other activities, we know how to separate insights that would allow us to share with others. But really, from a cybersecurity standpoint, that's where we've been focusing most of our work, is sharing insights with a number of different partners so that we can scale cybersecurity at a much greater rate. I think that's really the areas that we've been focusing on.
And it shows. I mean, we've had a lot of success combating a lot of those activities together, and we're thankful for that. Can we turn a little bit to that? I wish I could call it a 4-letter word because it's really only 2 letters. Sometimes I say it jokingly, AI, and like we almost got to have a conversation around it. But wow, has it become mainstream, right? I'm at the NVIDIA AI Summit this week in Washington, D.C., speaking at that, and it's security around AI and the dangers, but also the opportunities that it can create for automation. I mean, it's an exciting time around AI from a defensive point of view, but also a scary time from the offense. What's your view on all this from both offense and defense, if you could comment on that?
Sure. I think one of the key things that we're focused on here at NSA is protecting our national security systems. We know that AI will be used to enhance capabilities for both the intelligence community, the Department of Defense, the rest of our federal civilian agencies that we support. So we stood up an AI security center at NSA over 6 months ago, and there's three primary areas that we're focusing on. First, detect and disrupt foreign cyber actors that are developing AI capabilities that would be of risk to our national security systems. So that really falls into our foreign intelligence SIGINT mission, and then having insights on that allows us to then share those insights with others. Second part of our strategy is really to develop those deep partnerships with industry partners and those in the national security community that are implementing AI systems. We want to make sure, as we understand adversary intent and techniques, that we have opportunities to share with those industry partners what to look out for and how to counter some of those capabilities that the adversaries are developing. And then lastly, we want to make sure that we're evaluating and promoting AI development best practices. So if you think about the AI ecosystem, everything from the ability to generate a large language model, to deploy a large language model, and then to use your data to train that model, we want to make sure that we provide guidance to the national security community and others to protect that ecosystem. So our first publication we published was back in April of this year. We have several other publications that we'll host up on our nsa.gov website in the near term that will continue to support the best practices side of AI security.
I can't agree with you more, Dave, and thank you for that. Boy, it's great and refreshing again to hear all the initiatives that you have, and both for defense and monitoring and keeping our country safe. We see the same thing at NightDragon. We track every AI security company, by stage. We still haven't really seen a lot of big AI security companies emerge, but a lot of what I think of shift left towards the development side, model drifting, management, open source, a lot of companies around the world beginning to address this. So, I always try to keep an eye on the gap. I always say, mind the gap, right? What can the offense do versus what the defense? And from NightDragon's point of view, what can we do to help accelerate the defense with capital to eventually, kind of catch up to what the actors can do? So I'm keeping a close eye on that space. Talk a little bit, just, I hate to always kind of ask this, but like what keeps you up at night kind of thing a little bit. But like when we think about all this technology inertia, AI included, like what are you keeping your eye on from a technology point of view? I mean, AI you talked about. Is there other areas that you're focused on?
A couple of things, and just going back to the AI piece, some of the things that we think about from an adversary perspective is, an adversary that can now craft spear phishing emails that are much more believable, or an adversary that's using deep fakes that could perhaps be used for some of those you were pointing out earlier, or even the ability to automate their operations in a way that they and scale exploitation in a way that they haven't had in the past. So those are some things that, if I'm just thinking about AI, I'm thinking about those sorts of things. So we have to counterbalance that with defensive capabilities that allow us to use AI to look through a myriad of log files to find Volt Typhoon activity, as an example, to aid our analysts in detecting malicious activity. Now, when it comes to other topics, though, Dave, I think one of the things that I think a lot about is cryptography, because we have to prepare our nation for the era of a cryptographically relevant quantum computer in the hands of, say, Russia and China in the future. So that means we have to have quantum resistant cryptography. That means that whether you're government or industry, you need to have a quantum roadmap. And a quantum roadmap is a roadmap that takes a look at the technology that you have today in your networks. And as you begin to think about modernizing that technology, it's not just about the tech debt, it's about the opportunity as you're addressing your tech debt issues to focus on those components where quantum resistant cryptographic algorithms could be applied for the future. We're at a pivotal moment because 2024, 2025, we've now ratified, and NIST has ratified the standards for quantum resistant cryptography. Vendors will start implementing those standards in products, whether it's operating systems or edge devices, you name it, a number of different products will start having those algorithms implemented. So it's really important now to think about the quantum roadmap for each company, where there's critical infrastructure. We're certainly thinking a lot about this in government and making sure that we're preparing for the quantum era of computing.
Same on our side, Dave. We're, investors and operators, we're watching that trend closely too, because as you said, the commercialization of this and the ability to, have that in the hands of many, many people at this point is an era upon us. So something to watch. Hey, last question area for you, and a little bit of a pass for a minute. I've had the privilege of working originally with General Alexander and Admiral Mike Rogers and General Nagasone and the administration and the agency for a lot of years. But watching the work you're doing as a director of cybersecurity, reaching out, communicating. I saw you speak at Billington. I know you're at the Aspen Security Summit. I know you've been doing a lot of really interesting things. I think you did the McCrary podcast recently as well. And I love it. I mean, I want you out there. Just one guy, like the more you speak, the more we can partner with you. But I heard you have a podcast now too. Maybe talk about the podcast too, if you would.
Yeah, so NSA launched a couple months ago, No Such Podcast. It's really a pun off of our No Such Agency, NSA, inside joke here. But really, I think if you take a look at the variety of topics that we have out there, we have a cybersecurity discussion. We have a discussion from our operations organization. So there's a number of different podcasts, and there's more to come. One that you may be interested in is the discussion on bin Laden and NSA's role in the bin Laden operation. So we're talking about things in the podcast that maybe we wouldn't have talked about 10 or 15 years ago. So it's an opportunity for us to share with the American public what we're doing here at NSA, and more importantly, the people that are working here at NSA. It's really interesting to hear from the people.
Director Luber, I just want to say thank you again to you and all your service, 37 years, and all the hard work and your commitment, your career, your humility, your just ability to partner with this community. From my heart, I just say thank you to you, and we all should be thankful for your service and your commitment to us. I'm grateful to get to know you. Thank you so much for being a partner to us and coming on NightVision show. Keep up the great work, and thank you.
Dave, thank you. It's been my pleasure to work with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. See you, Dave. Thank you. That concludes our podcast for today as well, NightVision. I hope everybody has a wonderful week. Appreciate you.